Ladies and gentlemen, it is another week, another Friday. Y'all know who it is that you came to see. Hopefully, you came to see us, right? It is your boy, Cool McCain, and I am joined as always by my co host, the other half of the dynamic duo.
That would be your boy, Stephen Box. And you say you hopefully did they came to see us. If they came to see anybody else, they're gonna be disappointed.
That is fair. That is fair. So, for those of y'all who might just need your memory jogged, maybe things going a little crazy in your life and you just not remember things the way you were, right? Any of these things could be happening. Sometimes it be tough. But just in case, let us remind you who we are, throwback style.
The
The
play
play
callers.
callers.
So look, man, we're not gonna play around today. It's a lot happening in the world of sports, a whole lot of things. But the first thing that we got to touch on, and we're gonna come back to NFL after this, but we gotta touch on the fact that now let me repeat, all of the coaching vacancies have been filled.
Yes, they have.
So I know we've talked about some of them. There's two left. How do you feel each team did in filling their head coach vacancy?
Let's start with my division. Let's start with the Seattle Seahawks. They went out, they got a really young coach, guy who led arguably the best defense in the league this year. I know Cleveland fans might have a little something to say about that, and then, that's fair. But one of the best young defensive coaches out there, a guy that you don't really know how he's going to do, right? But this looks like a good hire. I think the issue I kind of have with the hire though is this guy automatically make you better than Pete Carroll? Right? So that's always going to kind of be the issue for him, right? Is not only are you following a guy who won Super Bowls there, but that dude's still in the building. Just a little awkward situation. But I think out of the two hires, they definitely did much better than the other one. Which I'm going to let you give your thoughts on first because that's your division opponent.
Well, I'd actually like to talk about McDonald, and
Sure.
then I can come back to my team.
Okay.
So, well, my division. So the thing with me with the McDonald hire is young coach. What we've learned from this whole hiring process is less retreads, more we want to get new faces, new voices. We want to have guys that bring something different. Because what I think, personally speaking, a lot of the guys that didn't get hired outside of Vrabel, which I believe will get a job next year, um, I think you got guys like Belichick, Pete Carroll's, Rivera, other names that were out there, at least for a coordinator, right? Guys that have been around a long time, what we call long in the tooth. I think it's time that teams are realizing we need to get younger guys in here because the game has changed.
Yep.
And the days of a guy having a lot of say on the personnel side are few and far between. Now, if you are in what we call a synergistic relationship, where you and the GM are kind of on the same page, you can go to him and say, hey, this is the type of guy I want. Here's an example of that guy. And maybe you don't get the exact guy, but you get somebody similar. I think that's more along the lines of what owners and GMs are wanting today. And I think a lot of the guys that didn't get hired or were some of them that were moved out don't fit that mold, that philosophy. And that's why you didn't see those guys get coaching positions. So I think going younger is the right option. Whether it works out with the specific person or not, you only can give it a couple of years and see. But I think we have to turn that corner and start saying, hey, we got to get a new breed of coach in here. What we have is no longer working. And I think that's what you're saying, especially with places like Seattle, where Pete Carroll got promoted from head coach.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the overall that. I just think in the case of Seattle in particular, it's just a weird transition And, it's not as if Seattle had completely fell off last year, right? I mean, they, almost made the playoffs. They got a team that is still fairly young, that he did get into the playoffs last year. So it's not as if Pete Carroll had the kind of fall off that Bill Belichick has experienced in New England. So a little bit weird, especially with him still being in the building. But again, like I said, if you kind of take that aspect out of it, I think it's a potentially good hire.
Now, the one hire that bucks the trend is the Washington Commanders. They did go out and grab Dan Quinn. And the sad thing about getting this position, you were at least a third pick. Because Ben Johnson said, no, I'm good. Bobby Slowick said, no, I'm good. So you basically could not have your top two people. And we don't know how far down the list Dan Quinn was, but we know he's at least third. But we do know one person that he's above, unfortunately. And that's Eric Bieniemy. I think Bieniemy is going to take more years before he's going to get that opportunity. I believe, just personal tomfoolery, I guess maybe you could say, that Bieniemy may be back there or somewhere as an OC, because I think that's the position that he's going to have to be better at before he's going to get an opportunity that some of these guys, like a Dan Quinn, weren't really that good at this past year. I won't say Dan Quinn has not been a good DC overall, but for me, for most people, it matters what you do in this time called the playoffs, right? Not the regular season, but the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I just don't see getting a guy from an organization that is habitually choking in the playoffs is going to help you be a better organization. I mean, Josh Harris, the owner of the Commanders, is also the owner of the 76ers. So making questionable moves, head-scratching moves, this wouldn't be the first or the last that this guy's going to make. So honestly, I don't like the Dan Quinn hire. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I think it was a poor quick fix decision. I think it was some of the guys we got didn't want to come, or they already hired somewhere else. So what are we going to do? So you went out and you made kind of like a desperation panic move. And I feel like, to me, that's what Dan Quinn is. And this is no knock on Dan Quinn, but like I said, when we're looking at everything that's happening with the coaches, we look at everything that's happening with who's getting hired now and the way everything's going. And I mean, Dan Quinn's not 70 years old or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But he's a guy that's from that. He's been there. He's had an opportunity. He's getting a second opportunity. Maybe everything changes with the right staff around him with the second opportunity, but that's yet to be seen. But just looking at Dan Quinn right now, I don't like the move, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it from the standpoint that Dan Quinn, outside of when he had Kyle Shanahan calling the offense, he didn't have a lot of success in Atlanta, right? So before and after Kyle Shanahan, things did not go well for Dan Quinn. So to me, before we can really say how good or bad of a hire this is going to be, we're going to need to see what he does at offensive coordinator. He needs a very strong offensive coordinator to come in and run the offense for him. We know this. So that's going to be a big question mark for them. I think that it's not necessarily that they made a rash decision or that they panicked, because there were rumors that he actually interviewed with them multiple times throughout the entire process. So he is a guy that they already kind of had on their radar anyways. But I do think that they were very confident that they could get Ben Johnson, and they rolled the dice on that. And so then when that didn't pan out, that kind of left them in a situation where it's like, okay, there's not a whole lot of guys left. Out of who's left, who did we like the best? And I think that was Dan Quinn.
Yeah, like I said, man, I mean, we have a difference on why they got there, but at the end of the day, this was not one of their top picks. Obviously, two other guys. I would, like I said, in my mind, this is at least the third pick. Right. So,
well, we know for a fact Look, we at least know for a fact he was at best the second pick because they didn't make this move until Ben Johnson said no.
Now, also they didn't make this move until Slowick said no. So in my
Yeah.
mind, he's at least the third pick.
Yeah.
But like I said, man, I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I'm very middle of the road on that specific, move. As far as the other moves go, I think we got a good mix of, like, Antonio Pierce with the Raiders. We talked about it already, but we got a guy who did everything that the organization should have expected and made things work. That's all you can really ask for. And then we got a couple of comments here. So AP says, as a Washington fan, I'll take Mike Vrabel over Dan Quinn. I don't disagree with that.
That's fair.
And then Damian says, Bieniemy got robbed again. I don't necessarily disagree with that either, Damian. I will say this for my thought process. We could point the finger at Washington and say, oh, Washington. But there were other opportunities for Quinn to be a head coach and they didn't want to bring him in either. So I kind of question what's happening. What's the reputation? What's the reason why long term we're not getting Bieniemy to get opportunities? So I'm just wondering, maybe it's his hard line approach. Maybe it's a little bit too old school for these new school guys. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously something with him individually, right? I mean, at some point, you do have to sit back and say, okay, we have more diversity in this hiring cycle than we've had ever. And even with that, Airbnb still couldn't get anything other. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think he interviewed anybody other than Washington. So I think that's the only head coaching interview he even got this cycle. So obviously, there's something about him specifically, and like you said, maybe it's just his personality, maybe it's his approach. It's just not what owners are looking for right now. There's something there, but obviously, it's not something that he's changed. You have to hope that he gets an opportunity. It's probably not likely he's going to stay on as the OC of Washington. Maybe he goes back to Kansas City. Their offense certainly looked worse without him. Maybe he ends up going somewhere else that gives him an opportunity. But I think he's a guy that you can debate all day whether he should or shouldn't be a head coach. But if he is a guy sitting on the sideline this year with no coaching job whatsoever, that's beyond ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with that, right? AP says something tells me Bieniemy is bad in interviews. It could be that.
A lot of reports of that. There's a lot of
it could definitely be that. Yeah, if you choke in the interview, it could definitely be that, right? I mean, am I going to hire you for choking the interview?
Although the dude has done I think 18 of them. So I mean, if you can't get good at them after that, bro, I don't know what to tell you.
I think a lot of people are using the same logic that you are, and that's why we're still continuing to see this gentleman not quite get there. Jared Mayo staff, right? I know they've hired the staff, but the success of the staff is going to be, the determination for how he is. Brian Callahan with the Titans. It's kind of weird, right? He's the OC for the Bengals. They haven't been bad, but they had that one really good year. So it's like, maybe not. You look at Raheem
it's a
Morris.
Tough one too, because you got to think about the fact that the year they had. You're also talking about Joe Burrow at quarterback and probably arguably the best wide receiving trio in the league. So
I don't think it's arguable.
Definitely makes your life a little easier.
Yeah, I don't even think it's arguable. I think that's the best wide receiver trio that's been in the league for some years now. Duos, we can argue, but trio.
Look, sir, we are on the internet. People can always argue with you, no matter how logical your comments are.
That is true. And then we got Rod in the building. Rod says, "What's up, fellas? What up, Rod?
What's up, Rod?"
It's really wild, man. I think it's crazy, and the reason I think it's crazy, wild, all those good things, is you see the diversity. Like Raheem Morris, right? He's a guy that should have had the Falcons job years ago. So they made a mistake hiring Artie Smith.
Mm-hmm.
So then they go back and get the guy they should have hired over Arthur Smith. Oh, Dave Canales. Let's be honest. Dave
Hold up.
Canales is like, you know what?
But before you talk about Dave Canales, I do just have one thing I do want to point out about Arthur Smith. He
Sure.
has been fired as the offensive coordinator, or hired as the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh.
I saw
So
that.
if you have any like star running backs or wide receivers or tight ends on your fantasy football team in a keeper league, I would not suggest keeping them next year. You may want to draft the backup.
So Damon has an interesting thought here.
Okay.
Damon says, if I have to guess, the real reason why Bieniemy isn't getting H coaching jobs is cause of his domestic violence case in 2021. And with this cancel culture and woke era we are in right now, I doubt he will be a head coach. And that may be a reason why it's taking a while. I think he eventually will be, but that could be another reason why it's taking the time. And then AP says, hot take, do you think Ben Johnson stayed with the Lions because he might be next in line for the Lions head coach soon? I would think when I heard that Ben Johnson was staying, I had two thoughts. That was one of them. The other one was he surveyed the league. He surveyed coaches that would be on the hot seat next year. And he said, you know what? There's probably going to be a better job than the Commanders open. So I'm going to pass. Right? Because let's be real. Philadelphia Eagles aren't better this year. That job's going to be open.
Yeah. And let's also be honest, that his other opportunity was Seattle, right? Seattle was also interested in him before they brought in McDonald. And the thing is, you're going to look at that situation and say, do I want to go in and saddle myself with Geno? Because what if Geno doesn't work out? What if Geno has another bad year? Because now you're not in the position to really go and get a good quarterback. And so you may put yourself in a bad situation by taking that job.
It looks like he wrote back.
He wrote back and they put return to sender on it.
He at least started drafting out what he wanted to say at something, because he's definitely some regression this past year. But I mean, it happens, And then we quickly, man, other two guys, Canales, man, Dave Canales just wanted to be a head coach. He said, "I'll take whatever job's available. Once I get experience, and I can try to get other jobs." I mean, that's the only reason I can see anyone taking that Panthers job, because you've been warned not to take that job.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Harbaugh went to the Chargers. He's been making a lot of noise of what he's been saying since he got there. But, as somebody who's been doing the show with you a while, even when Harbaugh was with the 49ers, I know the rah-rah thing always sounds good, but then you have to go out and actually produce. And that's what we'll be waiting on for Mr. Harbaugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I laughed when I saw he was like, the goal is to win multiple Super Bowls. I was like, you might want to win one first, sir. You might want to win one first.
Got to win one before you can win more than one. That's fair. That's facts. That's how it rolls. Now, we do need to transition over. Got something to talk about here in the NBA. So in the NBA, we have the All-Star rosters have been put out there, right? Starters as well as the reserves.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through. We'll start with the Eastern Conference. We're going to go through the reserves, right? Because we already talked about the starters. We can circle back to the starters, but we're gonna hit those reserves first, since they're nice and fresh. They got announced last night. They're nice and fresh, like some fresh baked chocolate chip cookies or something. All right. So in the Eastern Conference, we have Bam Adebayo, Paolo Banchero, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, and Julius Randle.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on Eastern Conference reserves?
So I don't have a problem with any of the reserves. I kind of look at this year like, if anything, there is a really solid argument for other guys. but I can't honestly sit here and look at any of them and say, okay, this is definitively the person I would take out and put this person in. So, if anything, to me, the conversation around this whole thing here is the NBA, with the talent that is starting to accumulate in the league, really needs to add more spots to the All Star rosters, because you're leaving guys out every year that honestly deserve it. There are a couple guys out there that are clearly all stars, and they're not on this list, and there's different reasons for it. In the East, two big names that stand out for me is Siakam and Trey Young. Those guys both have all-star numbers, but you wonder if the fact they play for bad teams is what kept them, from getting those spots. Guys like Porzingis and Derek White have both been absolutely huge for the Celtics this year. Neither one got in.
Well, I can name one person on the Eastern Conference team that I would take off of the All-Star, and I would put in Siakam or Porzingis over him, and that would be Julius Randle.
Okay.
He does have decent numbers so far this year, but Julius Randle is Julius Randle. Until you can show me consistently and not be injured, because the other thing is he has been out. He's missed some games with injury. So we know when you miss games, your stats always look better because you haven't played in as many games. So he's missed some games with injury, and I don't feel like he's really stepped up consistently every game. Kenny Smith said it best last night. I was watching TNT's thing after the game, their post-game show, and he was saying how you want guys to be, it might have been Shaq or Kenny that said it. You want guys like Julius Randle, you want him to give you 30, 25, 25, 35, 22, 25, and he's giving you 30, 12, 15, 25. Like, the consistency isn't there, right? Like, the numbers, the raw numbers themselves is cool, but the consistency isn't there. And keep in mind, the reserves are the coaches. The starters are fans, players, and coaches. The reserves are coaches. So the coaches thought that he should be in over those guys. I would say no. I don't agree. But it is what it is. It's not enough of a gap for me to be like, oh, that's just a travesty. But if I'm looking at putting a guy in, as soon as I saw Julius Randle, I was like, he could be replaced. All right. And then
Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, I look at that and I'm like, I'm not necessarily going to disagree with you, right? But that's kind of my point, is that I don't necessarily disagree either. I don't agree or disagree, right? I feel like you can make an argument if there's somebody else that you want to slide in that spot. There's 3 or 4 guys you could justify doing it, but there's going to be somebody else that's going to be just as good of an argument for Randall. So that's why I said ultimately I think it's more about they probably need more spots available than it is about the guys that got left out.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us, we have Mr. Young True 21 in the building. Chris, what up?
What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, Chris?
Man.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to point out to y'all for the one time, probably, ever for the next week and a half, 49ers fans and Raiders fans are going to get along.
I don't know about that.
All right, so AP says take out Dame.
As a starter, yes. Out of that All-Star, completely, no.
All right, so Damien says Banchero should be a starter, in my opinion. So let's think about it. So if you're going to make Banchero a starter, who are you taking out of the starting lineup? So he's a forward. So the people that you have the ability to take out for him is Giannis, Joel Embiid, or Jason Tatum. I'm not taking either 3 of those guys out to put Paolo Banchero in. So to me, he's not a starter.
Not even thinking about it.
Yeah, to me, he's not a starter, but he does deserve to be a backup.
Yo.
So Chris, we were just talking about the reserves for the Eastern Conference, and if there's anybody that you would leave off, and then if there's any 1 or maybe 2 people you put in their place. I said Julius Randle, and I put in like Porzingis or Siakam or one of those guys. Marcos made a very good point. He was saying that Yeah, you could take a guy out, maybe put another guy in, but it's kind of like splitting hairs.
Yeah, I can see that. I think Randall and Siakam both have had pretty decent years so far, but I'm honestly okay with the roster way it is. It's my preferences. They're not playing well, so you can't throw them in there. But I think I mean I'm a Hawks fan, so none of them are getting any love right now. But yeah, I'm cool with the way it is right now though.
What's up, Bobby? Happy Friday to you too, Bobby. Appreciate you watching, man. Yeah, I feel you, man. I mean, it's a hair split for me. I'm good. All right, so we'll go over to the Western Conference. The Western Conference reserves. We got Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Anthony Edwards, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Karl Anthony Towns. Whenever I see Mr. No Show, I'd be like, should he really be an All-Star? But that's a personal thing. But whenever I see Cat, Mr. No Show in the playoffs every year, I'd be like, should this dude even really be an All-Star? That's just, that's just me. But that's my thoughts.
I'm going to tell you that it's not just your thoughts.
Hey, you never know. Y'all was fine with keeping in,
No, I'm fine with
Mr. No Show. Y'all was fine with keeping in Mr. No Show in the East, so I wasn't sure if you was fine with keeping in Mr. No Show in the West. I'm just saying.
But for me, it's not even about the fact he's Mr. No Show in the playoffs. It's about the fact that he's not even the most important person on his own team. Rudy Gobert honestly has been more important to that team this year. But to me, I'm not putting either one of them in because I don't know how you do not make a place for either Sabonis or Fox on this roster. Like, I do not understand how you don't have at least one of those guys on this roster. And especially when it's so easy to decide who you take out.
I mean, I got a question. I got an answer for that. I mean, it's like we said last week. It's a popularity contest, and I hate to say it, but Cat is a bigger name to most people.
Well, you got to remember, the reserves are voted on by the coaches. Fans have no input on the reserves. This is all the coaches.
Even still, he's a more popular name in a lot of locker rooms. He's He's more of a team guy. He's the guy that's gonna do the yes coach type thing, and that's what they're gonna want. So
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
They'll do it.
Or they're gonna do it.
They'll do it.
Okay. I feel you. That's what I'm gonna do.
We all see it, man. We all see it.
Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. What do you guys think about those two? Because for me, I understand it's not a position for a position, but I would put De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis in over Towns and George. I understand Kawhi Leonard. We already know Kawhi Leonard ain't gonna play but so much. This man has been having so much leg trouble the last couple of years. So I get it, right? I understand why he makes the All-Star game. Again, name, skill, what he's done over the years. But Paul George, I mean, he's had a pretty good first part of the season, but he hasn't even looked like the first or second best player on his team. Weird to me, the second best player on his team looks like James Harden. And I can't believe I'm opening my mouth and saying it.
I was thinking the same thing, to be honest with you, man.
But he looks like the second best player. So if you go put a second player from the Clippers on, it really should be James Harden. And I hate the fact that I formed my mouth to say that.
But see, this is the problem I really have with coaches deciding on all-stars. Because yeah, theoretically, you get to see these guys a little bit when you're watching film and stuff like that, right? But for the most part, coaches are busy, I don't know, coaching their own teams. So sometimes you're just gonna pick a guy off of name recognition if it's close.
I look at the reserves list kind of like how the uh, the Olympic teams are set up. They just go by the names they know, the guys they feel that can work well in their systems, and it's at the end of the day, like I said, it's still a popularity contest. Who's gonna get you the most eyeballs on the All Star weekend? Whether it's in any of these events that leads up to the game and all that. That's all it is.
Yeah. But then you start looking at things like when they're like, oh, we have to get the Timberwolves 2 players. We have to have 2 people off the Clippers. We have to have 2 people from the Lakers, right? We have to have 2 people from the Suns, right? They
Gotta
start
have
getting
two
into that
Sixers.
yeah, they start getting into that kind of mentality.
hmm And this guy really should have been a starter, so we got to make sure he makes the team. So Damian says Embiid is injured. We don't know how that will affect him coming back. So I would put Banchero over Embiid. But you're not voting based off if you're injured or not. And I don't see any real world outside of injury where you would put Banchero over Embiid. If you're gonna put somebody that's already on the team and move them up, I would rather you move Bam up than Banchero.
Yeah.
Now Banchero belongs on the All-Star team. Don't get me wrong, but he's not a starter yet. Beantown, my boy Bobby, thank you. Cat is the Phillip Rivers of the NBA. Thank you, sir. Thank you for putting that in terms for me. Because sometimes when you're doing it, you can't get the right thought together. Perfect. That is
That's
a
a good.
perfect thing for Cat. We gonna tell
That's a
Coach
good
Dante
comparison.
that. I love that comparison. Shout out to you for that. My man Beantown Breakdown Big Body. Sports Wave. Let's go. All right. And AP says I'll take out Damian Lillard and replace him with Jalen Brunson. So if you're saying you want to take him out the start lineup, we said that last week. Like, I'm with you. You probably didn't catch it, but I'm with you.
Yeah, we
Like,
all
I
are.
feel like, I think Jalen Brunson's the better guard. He's played better this year. So I don't have a problem with making that move. I think Lillard deserves to be an all-star from the fans, and that's why he's there. So, you know how that goes.
Yep.
Fan love. Lillard don't play no defense, though, but fan love. All right. So any other thoughts? NBA All-Star. We'll go over the other stuff here in the next week or two once we get everything locked up. I know we got the situation with Steph Curry and Sabrina Ionescu doing like a 3-point challenge. Oh, by the way, with that, just a quick caveat for y'all. She's agreed to shoot from the NBA 3-point line. So she feels like she could beat Steph shooting from the NBA 3-point line. I love that. And if you've watched her play, which a lot of people haven't because she plays in the WNBA, I get it. She shoots from what's around the NBA 3-point line. See, a lot of the women are challenging themselves. They're not going up to the line. They're stepping 3-4 feet back and pulling. So they're pulling from what would be the men's NBA line, which it probably should be moved back for them. But you know how that goes. It takes 10 years and 80,000 arguments to move the line back 5 feet, whatever. But I love it. I hope they do something like 3 or 4 ladies, 3 or 4 guys, and let them battle off. That would be great.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. There's to be some changes coming to some of the other things too. So we'll see how everything plays. So we'll see. So we're definitely going to spend some time discussing the NFL championship games from last week for the NFC and the AFC. But before we get to that, I have a question for both of you gentlemen. What is wrong with the Pro Bowl? And that could be multiple answers.
So this is only an hour-long show.
What? Some Cliff notes. What is wrong with the Pro Bowl?
There's a lot of things wrong with the Pro Bowl. I mean, I think the fact of them trying to turn it more into just like a fun event was probably the right move from the standpoint that nobody cares about that game at all. But the fact that you decided that Thursday night would be a good time to do stuff is really weird. Also, the fact that you decide to have it in Orlando, which it makes it more accessible for fans, yes, but the is that really something these guys are excited about? Like, do guys go, "Oh man, I get to go to Orlando"? No, no, they're not. That's not something that people are going to be excited about, right? So, I mean, these are millionaires. They could take their kids to Disney or wherever anytime they want. So they don't need to earn a Pro Bowl to get this trip. So it's like at the end of the day, man, like I think that's part of the problem, right? Is the location. You should just have lived in Hawaii when it used to actually be a reward or a treat for guys to be able to go to the game. And, you know, if you're gonna do skills challenges and all that stuff, just do it on Saturday. What's anybody else got going on? Just do it on Saturday.
Well, the first part is them moving it the week before the Super Bowl. I think when they did that, ultimately, it started to you automatically rule out anybody who's going to be playing in the Super Bowl from playing because coaches are not going to want their guys to go and participate. And usually, you have some of the biggest stars playing in the Super Bowl. So you take out 6, 7 guys from each conference that's can't play. So that's the first thing. Even like last year when it was in Vegas, it was still a bigger deal than it is being in Orlando. I think trying to move it around to different places to try to make it more feasible to fans. And they last year they had this whole like NFL experience set up where fans can go in and do all their little things and whatever the little booths and see the players and all that. That's cool, but like you said, it's not a reward. These are places they can go anytime. That's great. And I was watching last night, and like half the events wasn't even aired. Like they filmed it, and then they showed it during the broadcast. So you're watching something that's already happened, and you got to wait to find out who wins. Like that makes no sense to me.
Agreed. I agree with what you guys are saying. Also, the events. Like I'm watching, and big Eagles fan, right? Jason Kelsey wins this thing where he's hiking the ball in these holes, and then he finally, after like 7 attempts, puts it through the 5-point hole, and he wins. That's nothing. I mean, I don't care about that. I don't know anybody that cares about that. You remember back in the day we used to have the fastest guys where they used to race. Guys would say they fast off. You used to race. You used to have the quarterback competitions where they had to run around, do different things. You had the drop where they would drop the ball. You had things where fans, casuals or diehard fans, say, "Oh, that's cool." Now it's like they just do stuff to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like half of the events, it's like, what is the purpose? What is the basis of you having this? What does this add? Entertainment value.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I want to see like you take the top 5 fastest dudes in the league and line them up for a 100-yard dash.
Right.
They did that a couple years ago, and I don't know why they didn't bring it back.
Yeah, like that.
We
That's
got
what
these
people want to see.
we got these dudes out here playing out here playing dodgeball. And I mean, I don't have a problem with dodgeball, but they're going multiple rounds in dodgeball.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. We're playing flag football, which I don't even care about because it's been flag football for 10 years anyway. So flag football, you know what I'm saying? Dodgeball. They have some team events, but they're not things that make you say, I like this. You had a good formula like back in the 90s, early 2000s. You had a good formula of the things you were doing.
Yeah.
You had different drills for different skill positions. You had drills for running backs. You had drills for quarterbacks. You had drills for wide receivers. You had drills for like linebackers, cornerbacks, right? You had drills for the linemen. You had all these things. And then you just kind of went too far to making it just whatever. Like it doesn't even matter anymore. It's like you do events and it's like you get points, like Chris said, they're not even live. So you're not getting a real reaction. You're not getting a real feel. You're seeing a replay. And it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
No one cares.
Even last night, like you're watching the quarterback skills challenge, the biggest thing that the consistent thing that I saw, all the quarterbacks was out of shape. And the reporter dude, he's like, so like you're out of breath. And every answer was, well, I haven't had a game in a couple of weeks, so I haven't worked out. Like nobody wants to see that. That's a bad product.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the why they moved actually to the week before the Super Bowl, right?
It'd probably be worse.
Yeah, because you wait till after the Super Bowl, it's like yeah, ain't nobody worked out in a month except for the people at the Super Bowl.
Pretty much, man. Pretty much. Now I'll say like I do agree with the stars, but I am so happy that we don't have to hear Patty Mayonnaise this year at the Pro Bowl because that man sounds like an angry Kermit the Frog every time he talks.
He's like, "What's wrong
And I'm just
with
happy
me?"
that I don't. I'm just happy I don't have to hear that. Yeah, you know my guy. Look at it. I'm like, come on, man. Just, no, no. So there's one thing that San Francisco can do for me. We'll talk about it later. Is just don't make me have to hear we're going to Disney World. And, you know what I mean? The guys just came back and nobody believes that. I said, I just told the guys they're gonna get it. What?
Oh,
Let's
it's
not do
bad
that.
enough. I got to deal with them for the next 2 weeks in my city.
Li- Listen, there is nobody on here right now that wants to see the Chiefs lose more than me, sir. Okay. I hope that any shots we see of Taylor Swift after the Super Bowl are her having to console her boyfriend. That's the only shots of Taylor Swift I want to see.
I want to
Actually,
say
what I want to see is her rip off the Chiefs jersey and have an Eagles jersey underneath and just shatter Kelsey's heart in the middle of the field. That'd be great.
that would be nice. It probably won't happen, but that would be nice. Um, here's the thing.
Philly fans would still boo it, by the way, Chris.
I have on my Nuggets hat today. You have on your Nuggets hat today. Do not get tricked by the petty person you have on your Nuggets hat. All right. So, couple comments here. So, as a Bulls fan, Damien says, as a Bulls fan, I'm shocked nobody got picked. Then again, we suck. That's why nobody got picked, sir, because you suck.
And that's why you shouldn't be shocked.
You're better than the
And
Hawks.
AP says the Pro Bowl is a meet and greet for the players and fans. It was better in Hawaii. Pro Bowl is nothing really competitive at all, just like the other All-Star games. True, Damien. And then, question: do y'all think NFL will start changing the Pro Bowl and make it worth watching now since football is in the Olympics? So it's a possibility. With all the Swifties watching it, they can go get some more stars to date some NFL players and get and generate another $335 billion for the NFL. Then I'm sure they would make some changes to make it
I
more fun.
will, I will just say this. I think the problem with Damien's question is it makes an assumption that the NFL hasn't been trying to make the Pro Bowl something that people want to watch and makes money. They just have no clue what to do with it because nothing they try works.
It's because everything they try sucks.
Even this
So,
year,
ladies and
like
gentlemen,
the Mannings versus the Manning, like that kind of is played out to me. You get it every other Monday night on the Manning cast. So I don't need to see them going back and forth with each other.
Yeah.
not at all. Not at all. Those are the type of things you can have Manning versus Manning. We have other brother duos. We have other guys that are rivals that we can actually see go out there and coach against each other. It doesn't always have to be the Mannings. There's other people that could do things. So I definitely agree with that. And I don't care at all about Eli and Peyton Manning. Honestly, I don't watch the Manning counts because while there are some good things about it, these are both very boring individuals. Anybody don't like it, it is what it is. You see these guys talk, they're not exciting. They're not guys that you care about. So you want me to go and be concerned about them. I'm just not. I don't care what they try to. When they start, I'd be like, nah. All right. And then AP says Team Kelsey versus Team Manning. Team Swift versus Team Kelsey. Maybe.
I will say I watched the flag. I was in person for the flag football game last year, and it actually was kind of exciting for the most part. I was sitting like right on the sideline when Jalen Ramsey knocked out Tyreek Hill, and it was hilarious to say the least.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I think that like Damien kind of hit on it, right? It is really more, or as the AP actually hit on it, saying that it's more just like a meet and greet. And I think if you're there in person, right, you're getting to see some of the stuff, you're watching it live. I think it, can actually be something that's fun to kind of be a part of, but it's not good television.
No, it's trash television. It's trash television.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the problem.
it's trash television. You've got to do something that appeals to the masses, not to the group of people that get to see it live, get to hear the chatter and all that. Outside of that, it's not good. I have to 100% agree. It's not good. I'm even with Damien here when he says the Puppy Bowl is more entertaining than the Pro Bowl. It is. The puppies be going at it. You know what I'm saying?
And what disappointed me about last year is they actually have a youth flag football tournament that goes on in between all of the events. I don't know if they aired that on TV last year, but that was actually pretty exciting to see the kids go out there and
I'd rather see the kids
they're,
that
they're
have
out
them
there on the
events.
field and they're excited. They're on an NFL field. Like that should be televised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather see that than have the events they put out.
I think most people would rather see either like the kids or like the old timers out there playing flag football than the current players.
Now that be something I can get behind, like a new school versus old school kind of flag football game. You have some of the past stars get up there and throw some flags on and go up against the younger guys.
They're gonna have to let the old guys have at least like 5 quarterbacks. Their arms are gonna wear out fast.
I was thinking more like maybe we have like 2 youth teams that play each other and then 2 old school teams that play each other. I don't know if mixing those,
Yeah,
because those young kids gonna be gone.
yeah. You gotta let the old guys go out there and play against each other, right?
Yeah, you gotta let them play against each other, man.
like Dion at his age could play Jerry Rice at his age, but if you put either one of them up against some of the young bucks, yes, it's not gonna be pretty, man. That's not
Not
them
at
anymore.
all. Not at all.
It'd be
But
fun to watch though.
guys, it would be interesting. I'll say that. So, Davian says NFL should have XFL and NFL players going against each other at the Pro Bowl. I mean, they are partners now. Why not? So there is no more XFL. It's the UFL. It merged with the USFL. I don't know if they have the same partnerships or not. I don't even believe The Rock is in charge anymore. So your Team Goodell versus Team Rock may not be feasible now.
Yep.
So we'll see how all that plays out. But yeah.
The problem with that is they're starting their training camps this month. So to have those players up and ready to go against NFL players right now, it'd be a massacre, even if it's just something like flag football.
Well, you already know that they might be in better shape right now than the NFL quarterbacks were.
This is a fact. This is a fact. This is a fact. So, gentlemen, we are going to go ahead, Chris.
I'm just trying to figure out how you get that much out of shape in a couple weeks. I mean, Baker Mayfield had a full-on dad bod, and he said, "Yeah, I've been doing nothing but playing with my kids for the last 2 weeks."
Oh, that's not the other thing he's been doing, sir.
Baker's
been eating out and drinking beer every day.
Baker looked like he was soaking in beer. Like he had a swimming pool full of beer and he just dove in it.
Baker sit on his couch drinking beer, talking about some Stone Cold.
And he still had the highest total yesterday. That makes no sense.
And dad bods, man, that he reverted to his natural form. He could play better in his natural form.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you, man. Any contest that is measuring accuracy in which Baker Mayfield came out ahead of Tua is certainly a flawed contest.
Anyone that doesn't have Baker last is a flawed contest, in my opinion, for accuracy. But I digress. So, gentlemen, we have these 2 championship games, right?
Yes, we did.
They popped off. So, let's talk about them. And we're going to go in reverse order today. And we're going to start with a gentleman who I'm sure has a couple of thoughts he wants to give us on the 49ers and Lions game. So, Mr. Box, we're going to start with you. Thoughts on the 49ers Lions game, and then Chris, you right behind it.
Well, you know what, man? Since I could probably sit here and go on and on and on, Chris, I'm going to allow you to go first, and I'll just kind of fill in with whatever you don't cover.
For the Niners Lions game, I thought Detroit came out exactly the way I said they should have. And for whatever reason, they just let up on the gas. And if I'm Dan Campbell right now, I would be kicking myself because you have every chance to win that game and you go for it on 4th and 3. And you don't run the ball, you try to throw the ball. Not just a short pickup, let me get these 3 yards. You're trying to go for it all and you fail. Every analyst, every person I've talked to over the last week all said you take, especially in a championship game, you take the points. Whether it's that three, you have a kicker that can get you those 3 points, get them, because that's going to end up being the difference of the game, and that's what it was. And maybe it's a learning experience thing, but you're not guaranteed to ever get back to that game ever again, and you squandered it on trying to make the big splashy play.
Yeah. There's a couple things for me here. So number one is, credit to the Lions. They came out and they did a lot of things really well in the first half, right? Had a 17-point lead at halftime. I do think that part of that was on the 49ers also. It's funny because everybody likes to talk about Dan Quinn's or not Dan Quinn, Dan Campbell's decisions, but I haven't seen a lot of talk about how Steve Wilkes had guys in these deep shell coverages on 3rd and long, where he was basically acquiescing 7 or 8 yards, knowing that you have a guy who likes to go for it on 4th down. And that just made absolutely no sense to me. We were not being aggressive. We had our linebackers constantly dropping back into zone coverages. They were not able to attack the run, which is why we got gashed like 150 yards in the first half. Second half, they started playing more man coverage. They started doing more of the things. They started disguising some of the looks that they were giving, and the linebackers were able to wreak havoc the way they normally do in the run game. And all of a sudden, Detroit could not really move the ball until that last series when they went back into like a semi-prevent defense again. So I'm going to comment on Dan Campbell's decisions. I don't think they're as bad as everybody makes them out to be. Because here's the thing. Into the first half, that dude so desperately wanted to go for it. He so desperately wanted to go for that. And he calmed himself down. He took the field goal. And I know he kicked himself the entire halftime for it. I know he did. The whole halftime, he was like, I can't believe that I did that. I can't believe I didn't go for it. So I think, you come out, you get that ball. We only went down to score the field goal opening drive of the second half. You get the ball, you're running very well. You're doing all the things you need to do, right? You're moving the football well. You get down, and it's 4th down and 3. Or I think that one might have been 4th and 2. And you have a field goal opportunity. And everybody's like, oh, you take the points. I'm sorry. I didn't realize 47-yard field goals were automatic. I didn't realize that that's just a given, that those 3 points are yours. It's not. And somebody tried to tell me, well, inside of 50 yards, it's about, 70, 75% chance that you're going to make the field goal. Dan Campbell was 85% on 4th down this year. In other words, he had a higher percentage on 4th down than he did going for the field goal. And don't forget, their kicker normally kicks inside of a dome. He wasn't in a dome on Sunday. He was outside. And because we're all old enough to remember white men can't jump, we know that you have to adjust 6 to 8 inches to the left or the right for the win. So I think that the fact that they went for it isn't problematic. I think the fact that they called a play that actually worked and Reynolds just dropped the football on a perfect pass, to me, actually justifies his decision to go for it. They did everything they needed to do. And if he catches that football, maybe this is a different game. Now, you go to the other field goal, it's like a 3-point game. Yeah, you know what? There you try to kick it, try to see if you can tie the game up because you've lost momentum. You got to do something to get momentum back. So I don't really have too much of an issue with people complaining. I don't think that that's an automatic kick either. It was also like 47, 48 yards. But in that case, you at least have to make an attempt to try to tie the game back up. You can't just say we've lost all momentum. Let me risk this, and if we don't get it, lose even more momentum. Right? At least try to get the points on the board in that case. I didn't have an issue with the first one, but the thing is, as a 49ers fan, I came out of this game feeling like, hey, we need to definitely start better in the Super Bowl. But I love the heart of this team. I love the fact that there was no panic. There was absolutely no, doubt in this team that they, could get it back. Any frustration that we saw was a frustration that they knew they weren't playing their best, especially defensively. And I love that. And then my boy Brock Purdy, Cam Newton, thinks he's the 10th best player on the team and he's a game manager. But I gotta tell you, man, dude put the team on his back and he carried the team in the second half of that football game. And I don't think anybody want to sit here and try to argue with me that anybody else has played quarterback in San Francisco in the last 6-7 years that Kyle Shanahan has been there would have brought the team back from that.
Well, I want to first address. There's been a lot of talk about Cam Newton and Cam Newton said this and Cam Newton said that. I want to bring a point that nobody's thought about that I actually heard other former players say. I forgot the name of the show, but they were basically saying, here's the thing. Cam Newton played on teams where he had garbage wide receivers, right? He had half the time garbage running backs. He didn't have the same level of talent that guys like Brock Purdy, even Jalen Hurts has, right? He didn't have the same level of talent. So when he's grading quarterbacks, he's grading them based on what he had and what he did with what he had. So while we want to go out and this was his exact words, while we want to go out and say, oh, this person did this person did that, they have the talent. If they can get it to the players can make the play. Cam Newton had to make 90% of the plays for his team to be successful. These guys are not being asked to do that. They're being asked to make sure the ball gets to the right player, and then that player makes a play. So that's kind of what it is with Cam. And we have a comment here. Cam has CMC. Cam had CMC for, I think, maybe 1 year when he was there. And we all know CMC was street clothes CMC during that time frame. So let's not act like CMC was out there every play. The majority of Cam's career, there was no CMC there. You might want to check your record, sir. But that's not something that was there most of the time. He had guys like Ted Ginn Jr. and other garbage wide receivers as his best players. Robbie Anderson, all types of things. So I'm not saying that he didn't have any talent on his team, but the guys that he's saying if you put a decent quarterback in the situation where they got these type of guys, they should be able to go out there and make those plays. And I don't fault Cam Newton for feeling that way based on the fact of what he had to do when he played. So that's, I actually agree with their thought pattern on that. So, it doesn't mean you play one good game or two good games and all of a sudden, Cam's wrong. Cam has the feelings that he has on that, and I can see through his eyes why he sees it that way. And again, as I said when he first made the comments, being a game manager is not a bad thing. Sucking is a bad thing. Couple comments here as well. So Ryder's sister says Marvin Lewis is trying to get another chance to be a head coach. Hopefully we're talking about like in the UFL or college. Hopefully we're not talking about another pro team. Damien says watching Lions lose made my week. Seeing every Lions fan's video crying like a little baby get taken bottle from them. Okay. Damien's not a fan of Lions, I see. Then Rod has a question for you, Box. He says, hey, Box, is this a must win for Kyle Shanahan?
I mean, is it a must win in terms of is he going to get fired? No, that's not going to happen. You're not going to fire a coach who has been to multiple NFC Championship games and taking you to 2 Super Bowls. Like, you're not going to fire him. But right. In terms of, and I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, In terms of this team, it to me it is a must win because what the hell do you do to make this team any better? Right? I mean,
We all know what one guy will say, sir.
look, you can make a good argument that there are places to improve, right? You could definitely improve the right side of the offensive line,
Mhm.
but are you going to be able to do that in a way that's going to allow you to be able to stay under the salary cap and re-sign Brandon Ayuk and all this other stuff? Right? That's going to be the thing. But even if you improve the offensive line, how many more games is that really going to make you better? How much better is that really going to make this team? So to me, it's you have because of the benefit of having Brock Purdy's contract, you have the absolute best roster probably in all of football. And if you can't get it done with this roster, then I don't know what else you can possibly do to get it done.
AP has a question for you too, sir. He says, "Are you benching Chase Young?"
I think that the whole Chase Young thing has been blown out of proportion, to be honest.
I
Uh,
agree.
they've shown a couple of plays where he was a little bit lazy, and it's been very, very clear made by the comments by our coaching staff, Steve Wilkes in particular, that it's been addressed. They didn't call him out specifically. They made it sound like it was multiple guys that they were getting after, and it was like a team thing and all that kind of stuff. But we all know them conversations were very much like Chase Young, get your stuff together, right? Uh, and the guys on that defense, they're not going to settle for that. And Nick Bosa, who might be one of the highest motor guys on the entire team, that's his boy. So I'm sure that Nick is pulling him to the side and go, look, man, if you not gonna go out there and give your all on every single play, I will go to the coach and I will tell them to bench you myself because you're not about to cost me a Super Bowl.
Spicy.
I don't know if you guys saw Joe Montana's comments about his Niners team compared to this Niners team. He kind of, in my opinion, kind of echoed um, Cam's comments about Purdy being the game manager. But he also said, he's like, you have a talented defense like he had. You have the all pro skill players around him. You don't have to do much. He said he likened himself to the mailman. He's like, I just got to get the mail to the right person at the right time. And he's saying that's what Purdy's doing. And I feel like if you can have someone like Montana, who a lot considers one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play, say those type of things about you, that can go a long way. And I think once people start hearing his comments about Purdy, people will probably kind of back off Cam. They're essentially saying the same thing at that point.
But here's my thing. So from day one, I've always said Cam's comments were not meant in any positive light whatsoever. Cam never at one time was he trying to say game manager in a positive way. Cam meant that word in every negative connotation he could think of. Every last one of them. And I've said it before and I will say it again. When there are other people who come out and make comments that we don't like, and they come out and they try to clarify and they try to say, no, that's not exactly what I meant. We want to be negative. We want to say, no, you said what you meant. Now you're trying to backtrack. I'm going to keep the same energy to Cam Newton. The same energy. He meant it in a negative way. I'm not letting him off the hook.
I don't agree. I agree with his comments. I don't agree with him in a negative way. If that's the connotation that you want to take it in, you're free to feel how you want about anybody's comments. But I don't agree with you. And when you come out and you say, oh, Cam this, Cam that, I am going to point out that there are several other people that have played, that are playing in the league that agree. So if you're saying that Cam is saying negative comments about your player, then you're saying all the other people, including Joe Montana,
No,
you need to give them the same energy.
I'm saying the tone in which Cam Newton spoke.
That's all debatable.
To me, made it sound
To
like
you.
it was like he's
And that's
being
fine.
Look,
That's how you feel.
you don't have to agree with me. I'm not
That's
changing my
fine, man.
opinion.
You could support your player. You could protect your guy. I feel like he was saying it in a negative way. I don't.
Listen, it's not about that because here's the reality of the situation. let's be very real about Brock Purdy for a second. There are a lot of guys who are physically more talented than Brock Purdy. There are a lot of guys who are bigger, stronger, and faster. There are guys who might even understand the game better. There's guys who really have every physical advantage possible over Brock Purdy. Okay. There are a lot of guys who have a higher upside of potential than Brock Purdy. If I were to go out and just randomly pick a guy based just on athleticism and abilities and all that stuff to start, and not even like looking at the way they play the game, just like literally looking at what their abilities are, Brock Purdy's not even the guy I'm gonna pick. Okay. But at the end of the day, you could talk about the weapons, you could talk about all those other things. And remember that Joe Montana had John Taylor, Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, and guys like that, Brent Jones. Dude had his own weapons, okay? And Bill Walsh is a coach. But we never put the game manager title on Joe Montana, right? So my thing is, yes, Brock Purdy is obviously going to benefit from Kyle Shanahan. He's obviously going to benefit from the guys around him. And I'm not going to sit here and say that from a pure quarterback standpoint that he's going to be long term better than even a guy like CJ Stroud, who looked absolutely phenomenal this year. But you know what? There's not a lot of guys out there using what they do have, understanding their game and staying within the context of their game better than Brock Purdy right now. There's not a lot of guys out there running the offense they're being asked to run as efficiently as Brock Purdy. And there's not a lot of guys getting out when things do break down and going off script and making plays like Brock Purdy. Now, y'all can like it, not like it. You can call that a game manager. You can call that a superstar. You can call that whatever the hell you want. All I care about is hopefully in a week and a half, I'm calling it a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Because that's the only title I care about, putting on Brock Purdy.
We'll let you have the last word since your team is still in the playoffs. That's a lot more I could say, but we'll let you have the last word because we still got another game to talk about. So we had the Kansas City Chiefs and the referees versus the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm simply going to say, I'm going to leave it at this. I've been saying this for over a year. It's hard to win 11 on 14. Baltimore did not do enough to have enough of a gap, so the extra 3 players couldn't make a difference. They did. Kansas City's back where they want to be. All 14 players that were playing for Kansas City, including 3 referees.
Well, I think Kansas City gets all 7 referees actually, so I think it's actually 18 on 11. But
Yep. And I'm a little disappointed Mars not here because I have 3 plays in particular that I wanted to point out to him. They all came in the second half. The first was the should have been pass interference call that was on Isaiah Likely. So Likely's basically tackled, and they're like, "Oh, well, he wasn't far enough down the field." So then they don't call the PI on that. Then you have the second one that was in the end zone. You have 3 Chiefs players, and that was a play that was Bush or whatever his name is picks the ball off. Again, your receiver is getting mauled in the end zone. Should have been a pass interference. They don't call it. Interception stands. Then you had the third one that was should have been called. Odell Beckham's going down the sideline on a streak on the left side of the field. His arm is being pulled. You have the corner wrapped his arm around his waist, and they said it's an uncatchable ball. There's no call there. All 3 of those plays resulted in Kansas City getting the ball back, stopping drives, killing momentum. And a lot of people will say, "Oh well, the Ravens didn't do enough to get to that point." Bull. You have 3 examples in the second half that killed your drives, killed momentum, and gave the other team the ball back in their hands. If that's not the definition of game-changing plays, I don't know what is.
AP says, "Nah, Ravens did them penalties." Not saying Ravens didn't do them penalties. We're saying even with those penalties, had the correct calls been made against the other team, the Ravens would have an opportunity.
yeah,
Then he wants to say the same thing we've been hearing. Everybody who's trying to defend the referees in Kansas City on that play. Well, Damien, we'll get to yours in a minute. Lamar threw it in triple covered. So when he threw the ball, it wasn't triple coverage, number one. Number two, as a quarterback, you're surveying the field. A guy puts his hand up. He's saying, I'm open. I don't have time to look and say, is he open for real or no? If he puts that hand up and says he's open, I got to drop that ball in there. That's number two. Number three, whether he was triple covered, single covered, double covered, quadruple covered, when there was a penalty that happened on the play that resulted in him having no opportunity to make the play, it should have been called. That happens for Kansas City, that penalty is called without a doubt, without a question. All right, and got something here from Damien. So Damien says, speaking of QBs and game managing QBs, what's your thoughts on Jerry Jones' comments about Dak throwing him under the bus, saying Dak can only take them far as they have gonna win with him? I don't respect Jerry's comments. I'm gonna just simply say that I don't respect anything that Jerry Jones has to say at this point. I think he's a senile old man, and I don't respect anything that he has to say. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't know if you guys have any different thoughts, but that's how I feel when Jerry Jones starts talking.
I'm just gonna say this. He's not wrong, but he shouldn't have said
it. I don't want to acknowledge that Dak is bad. I want RDP to stay the quarterback for the AFT for the next 5 to 10 years. So go RDP with the AFT. Let's do this,
sir. As much trash as we talk about the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones on here, even if he watched the show, he will keep Dak despite us. So you're fine. Don't worry about it.
But here's the thing. He said the same thing about Romo all them years back, and he replaced him with Dak. The comments rang true, as he said, for Romo as it does for Dak. Your team is
maybe that's the kind of guy he likes, right? Maybe that's secretly the kind of guy he likes. Billy V makes a good point here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's when you would have made if you went before I read this comment box. Lamar didn't use his legs to take over the game. I think he tried to prove he could throw from the pocket a little too much.
Yeah, I think that they definitely did that. But look, what did I say before the game last week? If you're looking at what does Baltimore need to do in terms of, making their team better, they've got to find some running backs that can stay healthy, because you cannot continue to have Lamar be your only running back, right? Because at some point you get into a situation like this where you're needing him to throw the football and he can't, because let's be honest. And I know a lot of people want to use this as a criticism against Lamar. They want to say, oh, yeah, he can't throw the ball, right? He can't read coverages and all this other stuff. And it's not that he can't throw the ball. And it's not that he can't read coverages. But you got to stop and think. This is a guy that his first, how many ever years in the league has been pretty much in a run-first offense where he's barely been given the opportunity to throw the football. So now all of a sudden you come in against a Kansas City defense that does a very good job of showing you one thing and then going into a different coverage after the ball is snapped. And you're asking a guy who you really just started throwing the football this year to be able to do that. And then you're going to not run the football with him. You're not going to allow him to use his legs and make plays. Now, I don't know if that was a coaching decision or if that was a Lamar decision.
Whoever it was, do better.
Yeah. You talk about the throw into triple coverage. And I'm gonna say something that for some reason nobody else is saying. The problem isn't that he threw into triple coverage. The problem is he threw the ball 5 yards short.
That's a fair assessment.
Because if he puts the ball over those guys, like, yeah, he was a triple coverage, but he also had like 2 yards of separation from all of them.
Look, but maybe if he didn't get pushed 3 yards, it's still a ball he could make a play on.
Yeah. But look, there were other things that played into that, right? I mean,
there were
people fumbling on the goal line, stuff like that. The penalties, and again, yes, Baltimore committed some of the penalties. The problem isn't so much that you call Baltimore for penalties they committed. The problem is that you didn't call Kansas City for ones that they committed when they were the exact same thing. Yeah. All we ever ask is consistency, right?
Sounds just like the Super Bowl last year.
You have Kelsey out here hitting people, and then, oh, I didn't do it when he gets hit. Even on that Zay Flowers taunting penalty, if you go back and watch the play, I don't know who the defender was, but it's holding his leg down, so he can't get up. So when he finally does get up, what's your reaction? You're gonna look down, right? And then, now it's a taunting penalty.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I will just say, like, I get that. I get where you're coming from on that, Chris. But in today's NFL, especially when you're going against the Chiefs, you just got to know not to do that, man. Like, you gotta have yourself mentally prepared. Like, don't even look at nobody the wrong way. Like, Stevie Wonder that if you got to, like, do whatever you got to do, bro. Just don't even get him a reason to throw a flag because they
True.
will throw it.
Jump up and start singing "No New Year's Day."
And we all know what the game. We all knew what they were going to play at. Even in like the warm ups when Kelsey Mahomes was taking Justin Tucker's balls and his kicking team and throwing them off to the sidelines when he's trying to warm up. Like, y'all know what they were going to be on all day.
Damon just said that Justin Tucker cursed the Ravens. And then AP says, I don't blame Lamar. I blame John Harbaugh didn't change the play calling. Yeah, I struggle with coaching versus player in these situations, right? And if you watch Eagles League, I've said this about Jalen Hurts a lot this year as well. There are times where it's like, bro, why are you sticking in the pocket when you know you can run? And there's times like, bro, why are you running when you should be sticking in the pocket? You both been in the league long enough to know the difference.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it's a called pass play. You know you got a running lane. Sometimes you got to make that move. It is what it is. You're not getting pulled out of the game. If you're Lamar Jackson, you're Jalen Hurts, even Brock Purdy at times last week. If you're Josh Allen, if you're the doped up leg, Pat Mahomes, Mr. Patty Mayonnaise himself, whoever, right? It's times to run. You have to take off and make those plays. You can't wait for a coach to say, hey, man, if you have a lane, take it. If you got a lane, take it. If there's a part of the field that's open, and especially if you're a guy that can run and evade people like Lamar Jackson. Me and Boss had the conversation a couple of weeks ago about the difference between Lamar and even a guy like Hurts, because we were talking about those two specific quarterbacks. Hurts is fast. He looked hurt this year, but he's still fast. But the elusiveness that Lamar Jackson possesses is a different level. You got to use it.
I'm going to be honest here. I think most of this year, right? I mean, there's always been some design runs, but I think a lot of Lamar's running this year has not been design runs, right? It's a lot of it has been when plays break down, when he gets an opportunity to run, when nobody's open, he's taking it, right? And I think Kansas City disguising their coverages so well, and he didn't ever know if they were in man or if they were in zone, I think made him hesitate just enough on running. And at some point in the game, it just kind of became like, okay, this is what it's going to be. And even when he had running lanes, he didn't take them.
I wouldn't argue with that. I'm just saying, if he wants to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback,
yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. You have to use the skills that you have. You talked about it with Brock Purdy. He doesn't have the same skills, but he used the skills that he had.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to do. No matter who you are, no matter who you play for, you have to use the skills that you have in order to win games.
I'm going to point out here too, man. People love to kind of play this game of, we want to blame people for certain things regardless of which way it goes. And we always want to be able to put the blame on there based on what the outcome was. Like everybody's talking about, Dan Campbell going for it on fourth down and how he should have kicked the field goals. But how many times have we seen coaches take 3 points and they lose the game? What do y'all say? Oh, because you were being scared. You're being too conservative. You can't be settling for no field goals if you want to win the NFL. You got to go for touchdowns, right? We all want to criticize that. We got people, John Harbaugh should have been changing the play calls. Well, why did somebody ask me if Kyle Shanahan has to win this year? Well, because part of it is that Kyle Shanahan always gets blamed for the Atlanta Super Bowl. But no one ever says Dan Quinn should have gotten on the head saying, Kyle, run the freaking football. Don't be throwing the football there. What you doing? Right? No one blames Dan Quinn and says he should have changed the call. So why is it that we like to only say when things don't work out that people should have done something different?
Good question. So AP says all that hype with Mark Andrews coming back. Dude, you should stay on the sidelines. It does look that way. It does look that way. Gentlemen, we have reached that time. So we're gonna roll up out of here. Any last thoughts before we go ahead and end things for the evening?
I will say Damien did ask one question earlier that I will give a very quick thought on. It said, who's more toxic, Kadarius Toney or Chase Young? Sir, that's not even a question. We all know it's Kadarius Toney, and I just wanted to say it out loud.
All I can say about that real quick, man, is Kadarius Toney got on social media to let people know that he was not hurt, and that's not why he was not playing. I'm like, yo, if I'm not playing because my team just feels like I suck, I'm not even gonna say nothing.
You know what? You know what my thought was when I saw that he did that. I was like, dude, do you really think that any of us don't know that?
So Damien wants to put this out there. This is entertaining. He says, for y'all Lamar Jackson lovers, I don't want to hear a darn thing about Fields sucking and he stole y'all playbook. Y'all just hating because Fields does it better than Lamar. I don't know what Fields does better than Lamar. What I will say is, it's got to be a similar playbook because they both do a lot of running. I don't consider myself a Lamar lover, but I'm a Lamar liker.
The only thing I'm gonna say to that is Lamar's Bills might not even be on the team next year, so there's that.
AP
Lamar
says
might mean another MVP.
He might. AP says box from that comment. Watch Tony have a great game in the Super Bowl. Tony ain't playing the Super Bowl, bro. That's why he's salty.
Hey, AP, let me be very, very clear on what I'm about to say. If you told me that the game is going to come down to one play and I can choose any wide receiver from the Chiefs to have to make the game-winning touchdown, I'm picking Kadarius Toney.
As you should. As you should.
Even over MVS.
And in the words of Forrest Gump, that's all I got to say about that. Ladies and gentlemen, we will return on next Friday. And between now and then, make sure that you tell 2 of your friends and 4 of your enemies. Make sure that just because they don't like you, it doesn't mean they won't like us. Just tell them where we at. Tell them what we do. And with that, we will be out. We'll be back next week. Shout out to Chris for joining us this week. Mar, we know you won't coming. We know you won't coming. But guess what? The smoke's still waiting for you. It ain't going nowhere. It's just simmering. It's here for you.
I waited all week for him too. That's okay. I'm gonna jump in the chat and I'm gonna talk to him.
We out.